Something really exciting is happening in the world of Node and JavaScript in general. Let's talk about Node and ES6 and see an example with template strings. To begin with, the new version of JavaScript is called ECMAScript 2015 and is often referred to as ES6. It's the new standard for JavaScript, and it includes new features to make managing writing JavaScript code easier and to add some of the things that JavaScript was missing. So, the latest version of Node includes the latest version of V8 embedded inside of it. And the latest versions of V8 have more support for ES6. Now, the idea here then is that you can start writing in this latest version of JavaScript if you want. Now, you don't have to, but it does include features that can make your life easier. Now, that said, that doesn't mean you can start right away in the browser, because not everyone will be using the latest version of the web browser that they're using, which means that their JavaScript engine inside their browser may not support it. You may not also have the luxury of having the latest version of Node on the server that you're actually pushing your code to. So this needs to be a decision that you make carefully with you and perhaps the dev team that you're working with in building your software. Now, that said, it can be nice to write ES6 everywhere, because if you're writing new features in JavaScript and Node, you can get yourself confused and start trying to use those new features in the browser when writing web applications, and by accident, between switching back and forth, forget that something isn't available on the web when it's available in Node. And so it's nice to just be able to do it entirely in ES6. If you're interested in writing ES6 in the browser and have it work everywhere, you can take a look at bapeljs.io. And what that does, it takes the new features in JavaScript, lets you write them, and then it converts the code you write into older JavaScript, into something that will run on all browsers. So it's not that you're really writing ES6, but it lets you write the same syntax and converts it to an older version of JavaScript when it's actually run in the browser. But again, what we're talking about here with Node is the actual V8 engine supporting these features. So it's not fake, it's real. We're talking about ECMAScript 6 running in V8, new features in JavaScript. So as we go through this course, we'll talk a bit about some of these features and how you can use them. But it isn't required to use them in your code. All right, let's take a look at one example of a new feature in JavaScript that makes things a little bit easier for us. To begin with, if you're using VS Code, and only if you're using VS Code, since we'll be writing on occasion ES6, the latest version of JavaScript code, you might need, when we're writing ES6, a jsconfig.json file in the folder that you're writing your code in. This file is simply telling VS Code that this folder contains ES6 code, and that certainly won't stop it from working if you don't have this, because we're actually running the JavaScript in Node. But it does let VS Code not warn us or give us warnings about features that don't exist in previous versions of JavaScript. So I can write some of these new features and VS Code won't complain about them if I have this jsconfig.json file. So again, you might need this. Now, looking at our app.js file, we'll take a quick look at template literals. Big word alert. Template literal is a way to concatenate strings in JavaScript, that is the new version ES6. And it's easier to work with than a bunch of strings concatenated with the plus operator, as you probably are used to doing. All right, let's keep going and take a look. This is a new feature in ES6. And again, I have my .json and I have this content. You'll need that in that file, so I'm good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and do this the way I would have done it in previous versions of JavaScript in a new way. So let me just put a name variable, and then if I wanted to make a greeting, I might concatenate my string. So I could say hello, and I need the space plus name. But with ES6, I have something called template literals. And what template literals do is it makes it easier to build strings, to concatenate strings together. So I can say, let's say greet2, and then instead of using a single quote, I'll use what's called a backtick or a grave accent. That's found usually in the upper left corner of your keyboard if you're using a US or UK QWERTY keyboard layout. So the backtick, you can see it's not a regular quote, but rather a backtick or grave accent mark, and that tells the JavaScript engine that this is going to be a template literal. I can put a regular string in, but wherever I want something that's evaluated, a variable, an expression, whatever the case, I put a $sign and then curly braces. Curly braces like I was doing a block, like an if or a for or an object literal. And inside those curly braces, I can put JavaScript code and then terminate the template literal with a backtick or a grave accent. So this is a template literal. It let me insert JavaScript code without having to stop the string and use pluses to concatenate and everything else. This is a lot faster and easier and less prone to mistakes. So if I console.log greet and I console.log greet2, now I'm running the latest version of Node, which means that the V8 engine embedded supports these new features. So I can just run it, and there it is. Pretty neat, right? Now again, I can't do this in every browser because it may not be supported. If I want to do this in the browser, I'd have to use something like Babel in order to convert this to this. So Babel would take this code I've written and convert it to this before we actually give it to the browser. But in the case of Node, I can just use this as is, give it straight to the V8 engine. Because it's the latest version of the V8 engine, this is supported. So these are the kinds of things you can do in your Node apps if you're running the latest version of Node and if your server is running the latest version of Node. So we'll see this as we go along on occasion. And we'll actually take a look right now at how we can build objects in the latest version of ES6 and use that to make our Node code a bit simpler as well. But that's it. Node, ES6, and this is template literals.